Hi, I'm Billy X Jennings, and you should come to the Marxist conference here in Melbourne.
We fight Wall Street in the workplace. We fight Wall Street on the waterfront. We're not just going to picket in front of the bank. We're going to stop operation.
This discovery that the people can express their will, and when they express their will massively, they can impose their will.
The only time that Indigenous people ever changed the course of Australian history was at the Aboriginal Embassy in 1972, and that came about because of mass action.
We're very lucky, obviously, today to be joined by a former member of the Black Panther Party. And we're also lucky to not just have me introducing that man, but to have somebody else here, actually, a special guest to introduce Billy X Jennings. Before we get to that, I would like to acknowledge that the land that we're meeting on today is stolen land, that was never ceded, that is Indigenous land, that always was and always will be Aboriginal land. And so it's only fitting that we have an Indigenous person here, an actor, an activist, a fighter, to introduce a fellow member of the Black Power movement. So if you would please welcome to the stage now Mr. Gary Foley. If he's there, there he is.
Greetings, folks. Greetings. Last night I gave a talk which I dedicated to the speaker today. I dedicated it to him because when I was 16, 17 years old, there were three things that politicised me. One of them was a good kicking from the coppers of the New South Wales Constabulary. Not long after that, a week or so after that, being handed to read the autobiography of Malcolm X. And not long after that, beginning to learn of the activities of a group in America called the Black Panther Party of America. The Black Panther Party particularly inspired a small group of Aboriginal political activists in Melbourne, Sydney and Brisbane in the late 60s, early 70s, and they inspired. I mean, we thought many of the activities that they were involved in were very worthy activities and activities that we might adopt and adapt in order to create some self-help programs in what was then the seething ghetto of Redfern. As a result of adopting and adapting some of those programs, we saw the development of the first Aboriginal legal services in Australia. We saw the development of the first Aboriginal community developed and community controlled Aboriginal health clinics, which eventually spread to about almost 200 around Australia. These things all had their origins, and these extraordinary programs that were effectively, in the long term disrupted and largely destroyed by a government who didn't like to see Aboriginal people showing that they could control their own affairs. But before we did that, you know, at the origins and heart of all these organisations were inspirations that we were deriving from a long way away, you know. And I never really thought that I'd ever have the opportunity to meet one of those very people who were part of that inspiration that we were drawing on. And I think last night Billy learned a few lessons himself in the sense that I don't think, and how could you, they were up, the Panthers in places like Oakland and other places in America were up against a brutal racist police force. They were up against complete oppression, poverty, all of this stuff, and they're too busy trying to figure and find answers or find solutions to problems in their own community. How would you think that what you're doing there back in the late 1960s is having an effect around the globe? Because it wasn't just in Australia, it wasn't just in Redfern, it wasn't just in Fitzroy, it wasn't just in South Brisbane, Australia, where people were looking at what was going on in America and deriving inspiration from it. It was all over. There are little Panther groups and Panther-minded groups sprung up all over the world. And last night I was probably a bit provocative in showing that picture of me and the Governor-General. I'll probably be a bit more provocative now at a conference like this by quoting the great helmsman, folks, Chairman Mao, who said, a single spark can start a prairie fire, folks. And I tell you what, that's what the Black Panther Party of America really did. It was a spark that started there, but it started a prairie fire around the world, if you can have a prairie fire in oceans, folks, across an ocean. But nevertheless, you know, the gentleman I'm going to introduce now is one of that group of people who were such a great inspiration to me. It's been really fantastic in the last few days having an opportunity to talk to him, get to know him, and best of all, from my perspective, is the fact that he's a bit like me in the sense he's an old radical, but more so in the sense that he's about history. He's a collector and he's an archivist, which is what I am, folks. These are my passions, you know, and he, like me, understands the importance of preserving and ensuring that our history is told to people such as yourselves in a manner, you know, that we want to tell it, not by some white academic historians in various academies around the world, but from the horse's mouth, which is what you're about to get now, folks. It is a great honour for me to introduce you to the real thing, a real live Black Panther, folks, Mr. Billy X Jennings. Welcome him.
What an intro. Woo. All power to the people. Can I hear that again? All power to all the people. Power to the workers. Now we can start. My name is Bill Jennings. This is the name my mother gave to me when I was born. Along the way, my name has changed quite a few times. People know me as Billy X. Ex-party members know me as Billy X, and on the streets, people know me as BJ, Bill Jennings. First of all, I have a lot of material to cover, so I want to move along. Even though our organization was only in existence for about 16 years, we left an impact, we left a footprint that hasn't been filled yet. So as a young person, I was born in 1950, right? And during that time, America, imperialistic forces, was engaged with a war with North Korea. My dad was in the service. I was born in Alabama, Anniston, Alabama. So if anybody knows any history about the civil rights struggle, Anniston was a part of that struggle. Matter of fact, if you go through history and look at some of these civil rights pictures, you will see among those in the 1950s a burning Greyhound bus. That bus was burned in the city that I came from. It was burned by the Ku Klux Klans because they had freedom riders on that bus. So not only did they burn the bus, they beat up the freedom riders. So this is the kind of climate that I came from. So my dad was in the service. My mother is from Hobson City. Hobson City historically is the only black city in the South, deep South, that had their own police department and their own mayor. They had like autonomy. I wouldn't really say autonomy, but they had control over certain aspects of their community. So my mother came from this environment where black people kind of ran everything. So she was never a very submissive person, you know. So in 1955, Rosa Parks, who was everybody know who Rosa Parks is? Yes. Thank you. So Rosa Parks and Martin Luther King, there was a bus boycott in Montgomery, which is not far from Anniston. So that particular year, 1955, the bus boycott started. So it was the same year my father got walking papers to be transferred to San Diego, California, where the family moved to. So along the way, so we catch a bus out to San Diego and we get established, and we get our first apartment, right? I was like 5 or 6 years old at that time. And so we moved to California. But before we moved to California, this is what happened to me. This is typical of the kind of racism that's embedded so deep in America. There was a department store called Sears. If you've ever been to America or you know about this corporation, they had stores everywhere. But this particular store in our town, you couldn't go in the front. Black people had to go in the back. As a young person, I didn't recognize it, didn't know that. So my mother had bought me some candy that I liked. And what happened was it was during the winter, and we had came back out of the back of the store and was walking around to the front. And as we walked around to the front, this big gust of wind took my candy out of my little hands and blew it into the gutter. We were standing right in front of Sears, the main entrance where white people could go in. I didn't know black people couldn't go through there. But we were standing right in front of the door, and I kept begging my mother. I was campaigning, pleading, I was lobbying, I was doing everything I could to get some more candy. So she finally looks down at me and says, "Damn, if you want some more candy, we have to walk all the way around to the back to get into the store." So that was my first understanding of we couldn't go to the front. You know, we was treated different. And a few weeks later, Santa is coming to town, and every young person wants to see Santa. And I was just like anybody else. And so when we got there was a crowd of people standing on the curb, so being a little guy, I couldn't see. So my dad put me on his shoulder so I could see, but I really couldn't see. But there were some white people kind of on the side or right in front of him, and they said, "Oh, you can come forward so your kid can see Santa," right? So my dad refused. So I didn't say anything to my dad because, you know, he was my dad. So on the way home, I said, "Dad, why didn't you go closer to the curb so I can see Santa?" He says, "You know, down here, black people are not supposed to stand in front of white people. So it's an unwritten law." So those are the things that was ingrained in me before I even left and went to California. So I know that is happening, right? So we moved to California, and because the civil rights struggle is going on in Montgomery, my mother buys a TV in 1956. So you older people know that back in the 50s, TV wasn't that common. I mean, it was like a luxury that most people didn't have. But my mother bought this TV to keep up with the struggle in Alabama, so she can keep up with the civil rights struggle. So during the whole process of this, my mother's sitting here watching TV every day at 6 o'clock news. I'm her oldest son sitting next to her. So we're watching the civil rights struggle, and black people were being beaten Dogs are being sicked on people. They're being sprayed down with high-powered hoses because they want to vote. And during this whole process of civil rights struggle, when at one point my mother gets so mad, she looks at me and says, "Don't you ever let anybody treat you like that. Don't you ever let anybody treat you like that." So that was instilled to me from the get-go, to resist, to stand up and be somebody, right? So time goes on. This is instilled in me. So to move things forward, I go to high school, right? And as a freshman, when you enter, you're in ninth grade, you don't know anything because you was in junior high last year, So one guy took me under his wing because I used to fight a lot. Because if you said something to me I didn't like or something racial to me, I'm seeing you at 310. 310 was when class was over, I'm kicking your ass. So I had a reputation for being a fighter. So one day, my first mentor, says to me, pulls me to the side. He says, "BJ, you can't fight everybody. You have to pick your battles." Of course, I didn't know what that meant. So this particular guy, in 1968, he was ahead of me in class, so he went to college. So in 1968, where I'm a senior, he's in college, and he goes to the Olympics in 1968, and he holds his fist up. And the person I'm talking about is Thomas Smith. He was my first mentor. So we were from this very small school. I mean, less than maybe 1,000 people went to this school, but that's who I first gravitated to. So when I graduated from high school, I moved to Oakland, and in my apartment building was a Panther, right? And it was one day I was coming from this concert. I went to see Jimi Hendrix, matter of fact. I was coming from the Jimi Hendrix concert. It was like during the summertime. I had just moved to Oakland, and he and some other Panthers were outside, right? And they were drinking wine and whatever. So I stopped, and I started talking to him, and he said that they were having a rally a few days from now, and if I wanted to go, I could be ready at 10 o'clock. So the reason I came to Oakland from San Diego was to go to college. So one day before this rally happens, there was another rally at the Alameda County Courthouse. If you ever seen any pictures of the Panthers during that time, you see them in front of this big white building, they're circling and they're saying, "Free Huey off the pig." So I'm sitting in my criminology class during the summer of '68, and this big roar comes up, "Free Huey, free Huey." So my break was at 12 o'clock. It was about 11:30. So I ran up to the corner where I heard all this shouting at, and what had happened was it was the first day of Huey's trial. Huey was a founding member of the Black Panther Party, and he was on trial for murder of a police. And one police had died, and the other police was shot and injured. So he was captured in 1967, and his trial had started in 1968 when I came to town. So that was more or less my introduction to the Black Panther Party. But to back this up a little bit, when I graduated from high school, my English teacher gave me a book that led me in that direction. It was called The Autobiography of Malcolm X. So the night I graduated from high school in San Diego, I caught a bus up to Oakland to go to school. So I'm reading the book on the Greyhound bus, and those who have ever read this particular book know that once you start, it's hard to put down. So anyway, I was at this class, I was reading this book, and I went to this rally, and happened Bobby Seale and Eldridge Cleaver spoke that day. And he spoke about the same things that Malcolm was just telling me about in his book. So I followed what they were saying, and I later joined the Black Panther Party. Now, I have a video I want to show, and it's pretty good. I helped produce it. and it's kind of like an intro to the Black Panther Party. So I'm going to show you this video for about 15 minutes, then I'm going to come back and take it from there, tell you about what it took to join the Black Panther Party and what it took to be a Panther in training. So I wanted to start there, so you can see how the party first started. The Black Panther Party started as a self-defense group. Huey was a law student, and after the death of Martin Luther King, after the death of Malcolm X in 1965, culminating with the rebellion of people in Southern California, the people call it a rebellion, but the media call it the Watts riot in 1965 down in L.A. So with the combination of Malcolm dying, the combination of this rebellion in 1965, the Black Panther Party was hatched in 1966. Now, what was unique was Bobby and Huey was both observing what was happening in Southern California at this rebellion. So after the riot, there was a community effort to patrol the police, because this is what happened in the very get-go. The riot, the rebellion was caused because of police brutality in the community. A couple of police jumped on this sister, this older member of the community, and the young people retaliated. And it was a 13-day uprising, right? So what happened was a community group organized themselves. It was called CAP, C-A-P, Community Action Patrol. And they actually started patrolling the police, but they had the old type tape recorders, and back in the day before there was digital equipment, people had 35-millimeter cameras with film inside, for young people who don't know what that is. They had film inside, but what they would observe the police, they would follow the police, and if they did something, they would record it. So what the police would do was go and take their film and destroy the photographs. So Huey, going to law school, knew that you can have a gun in public, So what we started doing is patrolling the police with a gun and a law book. But history has dissected that law book out of our hands. They don't even talk about the fact that we were recording, we were reciting law to the police officer. A lot of times they didn't even know the law themselves, right? And so the history has taken that book from us, and all you see is that gun. But that gun was legal, and we went to Sacramento. This is when America saw that there was an organization called the Black Panther Party. And myself at that time had seen that when I was 16 years old, because it happened in 1967, right? And so I moved to Oakland, and I met some party members, right? But what happened was, as it ends, they passed a law, so we couldn't have guns in public anymore, right? So we didn't do that. So when people came in, hopefully they was handed a flyer here that has the Black Panther Party 10-point program on it. And on it, this is what I read as a young person. This is what they first gave me. They said, this is what we're all about. And it's broken down into two departments, what we want and what we believe. And so after reading this, the first one says we want freedom. We want the power to determine the destiny of our black communities. We believe that black people will not be free until we're able to determine our own destiny. Boom. That hit me like a rock. So I started reading, we want full employment for our people. We want decent housing. We want decent education. But the one that really got to me was number 6. We want all black men exempt from military service. And that is because during that time, there was the Vietnam War. And in America, I don't know about here, but they had a draft system. They had actually draft you out of college. They can come grab you from whatever life you're living and throw you into the jungles of Vietnam. Next thing you know, you're dodging bullets, So this we were against, because if you know anything about American history, during that time, during the Vietnam War, black people couldn't vote to 1965. They could not literally, in some states, go vote. So what they're doing is drafting people, telling you you're fighting for America, you're going to save democracy, you're going to fight for democracy. That seems like a contradiction where we can't even vote for president. You know, they're drafting people, we have no say in the government. So that resonated with me because I was 17 and 18 was the year they started drafting people, right? So I said, wow, I'm really for that. And so I liked the program, so I just decided to join the Black Panther Party. Now, like I mentioned before, you really couldn't just join the Black Panther Party. You had to go through a 6 to 8 week training process. And in this process, you know, when I first joined the party, I thought, you know, it was all about guns. But the first thing they gave you was a list of books to read. This is what we're about. And if you want to become a Panther, you have to read all these books or no part of them. Wretched of the Earth, right? Frantz Fanon's book, you know, Dying Colonialism. You have to read What Is to Be Done by V.I. Lenin. Also on our list was the Communist Manifesto. Also was on our list was books by Paul Robeson, books by W.E.B. Du Bois, other leaders throughout the struggle. You know, because the Black Panther Party was part of the liberation struggle in America. And from 1966 to 1988, this was our role. Our role is to be a vanguard organization. So in order to be a vanguard organization, you must have an educated cadre. An educated cadre. You cannot go into the community not knowing how to deal with problems and solutions. So we took, for example, the Red Book. We liked the Red Book, and we took principles from the Red Book by Chairman Mao because it took a lot to organize that Red Army. And so there's certain things in the Red Books that we took, we liked them, we tore them out the book, we stapled them to the walls, right? This is how we're going to run our organization. We're going to deal with liberalism, 11 points of liberalism, criticism, and self-criticism. We're going to deal with relationship between men and women, right? So all these things we had to deal with as a young organization coming up. The Black Panther Party, like Bobby said, we came from nowhere. From 1966, we were on the scene, you know. So we developed from the grassroots upwards. You know, we had to deal with male chauvinism because people coming into the organization was coming from the bigger society. And in America, male chauvinism is like runs rampant. So we had these young black men coming into our organization that had some had very little respect for women in any position. So we had to educate people about that, you know. So there are different elements. How do you turn this on? Hello? Well, anyway. Okay, so there's certain elements that we had to deal with, and political education was one of them. You know, we spent a lot of times reading and studying. In order to become a Panther, you had to read 2 hours a day by yourself. You had to attend political education class twice a week. We had a local political education class and a national political education class, and the national one was on Sunday. Sunday, either Eldridge Cleaver, Bobby Sear, or some leading member of the party would pick a subject, and we would all participate in it. Now, like I said, the Black Panther Party kind of blew up. When black people, young people seen the Black Panther Party stand up to the police, every young person in America felt a sense of pride, just like I did. Finally, we are standing up to the oppressor. Finally, we're not going to take no more shit, you know, from the establishment. But we have to educate people first, right? So you go through this process, you have to read and study, and also you have to acquire a weapon. And you have to learn marksmanship. You have to go to the range and learn how to shoot, you know, because we believed in necessary armed propaganda, because you're not going to deny us. We're not going to take the same thing that our parents took. So how we started was this. Like I said, we were a small group of people with no money. So Huey found a place in San Francisco where we can buy these red books for $0.25, right? So we went to Chinatown in San Francisco and bought these red books. And we were studying from the red books, but it was a good price. So we took them to UC Berkeley University, that's right on the edge of the black community in Berkeley, and we were selling these said books for $1, right? So we sold stacks and stacks of red books in the 1960s to students at UC Berkeley, right? So therefore, we used that money to start our first newspaper. This is the first issue of the Black Panther Party newspaper, #1, Volume 1. And it was all about police brutality. The police had killed these young brothers right here, as they do often, you know. So the Black Panther Party was started, like I said, in 1966. This particular community newspaper is dated October 1st, 1966. The Black Panther Party started October 15th, 1966. So these incidents like this were occurring often. So this is the front page of what people were reading throughout the Bay Area, Oakland, San Francisco. So the Black Panther Party, Huey P. Newton, Bobby Seale started the Black Panther Party. So some of the first things that we did was educate people on legal aid, because most people at that time didn't know the law. So we were trying to educate people through our newspaper. At first, they didn't want to publish our newspaper, but there was a radical group in Berkeley. They had a newspaper called the Berkeley Barb, and the Barb came out on Wednesday. So nobody wanted to print our paper because we were too revolutionary, too black. So we called the Berkeley Barb, and the editor, Max Shear, said, hey, we get our paper printed on Wednesday. Why don't you ride with us to San Francisco, and maybe they'll print your paper? And I said, okay. So one of our members rode over there, and indeed, they printed our paper. And that's how our paper started coming out on Wednesdays through the Berkeley Barb, as Solidarity at Work, right? So the paper started coming out, and so from 1967, the first issue, the Black Panther put out 520 issues of the Black Panther Party newspaper. In this said paper, you would find articles about liberation. You will find out things about the rallies the Black Panther Party were sponsoring. You will find out about the 10-point program that you have in your hand. That is one thing that we've really pushed on people, right? To make people understand what we're about. For instance, we had covers dedicated to Malcolm X. This particular issue deals with Japan's support for the Black Panther Party. Yes, Japan. There's 0% black people in Japan, but there were students in Japan that supported the Black Panther Party. So the Black Panther Party was starting to gain notoriety throughout the world, you know. And so what happened was the party blew up. You know, we had one office in Oakland, and next thing you know, we have 51 offices of the Black Panther Party throughout America in 30 major cities. We grew too fast. So in 1969, we call it the Purge. During that time, we were eliminating members of our organizations and chapters of our organization that didn't live up to our particular standards, right? And at the same time, in 1969, saw the biggest attack on the Black Panther Party by the federal and state agencies of the United States government. During the course of the Black Panther Party, there was something like 28 party members killed, shot dead. And many of you might know about Fred Hampton, who was shot and killed as he slept in 1969. He was a leading member of our organization in Chicago, Illinois. And if you go to our website, It's About Time, it's on that piece of paper that you have, you will find videos that deal with that history of police oppression on the Black Panther Party. The police would actually spend millions of dollars trying to destroy the Black Panther Party annually. They were spending something like $7 million of 1960 money. And you know, in 1960, I mean, money was different than now. I mean, that $7 million bucks probably be $21 million a day, trying to destroy an organization that was serving the people. So we had our hands full dealing with police oppression in the community, but also on that paper, if you flip it over to the back, you will see some of the community programs the Black Panther Party started. And this is what I'm most proud of about the Black Panther Party. In light of the oppression by the government, we were still creative enough to start social programs, to show people what we were talking about. So we wanted to show people what socialism was, you know, in action. Because talk. A lot of people would go by action. So we started a free breakfast for school children program. Sounds innocent enough, right? Feeding kids, merging nutrition and education together. No one had did this before the Black Panther Party. Not in the private sector, not in the public sector. So what we did is started feeding kids in our own community, and it caught on nationwide. So what happened when, even though we were in the process of having all these community programs, the government was still calling us thugs and criminals and terrorists, everything under the sun. But people saw what we were doing through the social programs. So that became a contradiction, you know. They talk about the Panthers, they say the Panthers are no good, but they're feeding 100,000 kids nationwide. So this particular kind of action really embarrassed the government. So in 1971, to take the glory from the Black Panther Party, the government says, we are now starting a federal free breakfast program and free lunch program. But the thing about it is this. I looked at statistics before I left. They're feeding 5 million kids on a nationwide level, and they've been doing that since 1971 to 2011 is the last time I've seen their statistics. So if you add up the math of all the kids in America that have breakfast program, millions and millions of kids have benefited from this program, but how many of those kids know that the Black Panther Party first initiated that? Very few. So that's why I'm up here. That's part of my job as a historian, to bring out part of our legacy. So we have a list of programs like liberation schools, because you've got to remember during the time there was no black education whatsoever. I grew up through high school. I mean, I had a pretty good average, but I know very little about black people. They never taught anything like that in school until 1968, where members of our organization was going to college at San Francisco State College in San Francisco and started a strike that spread across America. And it was about ethnic studies. Like if you was Asian, black, Native American, Chicano, there would be programs instituted in the university so that you could take your skills and knowledge about your history and take that back to the community. So thousands and thousands of professors were hired throughout America to teach ethnic studies. So the Black Panther Party had fought on many fronts, the educational fronts, social programs, busing programs. We had a program, even though that black people were being locked up at a higher rate than their population ratio, we couldn't do anything about that, but we started a busing program to prison. That we actually had 2 big buses, and every week we would go to a different prison and take loved ones and family members to see their loved ones in prison, you know. And that is a great thing, because even though that your husband might be in jail, your son might be in jail, there was someone in the community who supported you and would take you there, take you to the prison. We didn't charge money, we just asked for donation. So all these social programs that the people came to know the Black Panther Party by, particularly we had 11 free medical clinics. Free medical clinics. At that time, the government had none. They had 0 community clinics. These are clinics that people could come to 24 hours a day, manned by volunteers, doctors and nurses, interns, students, and so forth. So 2 of those institutions are still open to this very day. Right now, they're serving people. One is in Seattle, Washington, and the other is in Portland, Oregon, still serving the people. So the legacy of the Black Panther Party lives on. So you take a look at these other social programs the Black Panther Party started. Now, the one, it says community control of police. Now, I'm very proud of this particular program. Black Panther Party fought on all fronts. And this particular petition called the Community Control of Police was an initiative we put on the ballot, right? And what happened was they said it takes 20,000 signatures to get your measure on the ballot. So we got the 20,000 signatures, put it on the ballot, and what was unique about this particular measure is that one of the main focal points was that the police have to live in the community in which they work. Imagine that. The police have to live in the community in which they represent, where they work at. So therefore, you would have people who live out in the suburbs come into the inner city with their racist attitudes and their racial profiling because they're part of the community now. You might know them on a different level. They might go to the same church as you. Your kids might go to school with their kids. You might see them at the supermarket and say, hey, Officer Jones, instead of that MF, I can't wait to kick his butt. You know, people have a different attitude. So those are methods that we try to institute in the community. Now, I have another part of this video I would like to show, and then I'm going to talk a little bit more. All right. Okay, so moving right along, the growth and development of the Black Panther Party came about because of conditions set in America. One of the things that really propelled the Black Panther Party forward was our newspaper. Black Panther Party newspaper came out weekly. Black Panther Party newspaper had international articles in it, showed our support for Mozambique. We were internationalists. We supported groups that was engaged in an armed struggle. You could read articles about what was happening in Africa, what was happening to the Palestinians. Yes, the Palestinians in 1970, we were covering the struggle. We're not new to struggle. So the Black Panther Party was a very important newspaper because it also was a revenue for the Black Panther Party. Like I said, we came from nowhere, so we had very little to deal with. But our Black Panther Party newspaper outsold every other newspaper in America. We were selling 400,000 issues of the Black Panther Party newspaper per week. That's a lot of quarters. And not only that, we had to be able to support the rank and file because most of them were like myself. We didn't have money. Someone was 17, 18, 19, living at home with their parents, and maybe a lot of their parents say, well, I don't want you involved in that, you know, and a lot of young people was kicked out of the house. So we had to have places for them to stay. So we had to build the infrastructure in the Black Panther Party, and we did it along the socialist lines. So everybody sold the Black Panther Party newspaper, got a dime from it. That was a way for the rank and file to maintain themselves. So we get 15 cents came to the national office and a dime came to an individual Panther. But later on, we needed offices and houses for the Panthers, so that dime became a nickel. So collectively, we developed housing for Panthers. Money went to our breakfast programs. So the Black Panther Party newspaper was sold enthusiastically throughout America. The Black Panther Party newspaper represented our thought. It was a tool to educate and organize the people. Very, very important entity. Very, very important newspaper. But at the same time, even today, if you go on eBay and look for a Black Panther Party newspaper, you're not going to find one less than $100. I'm telling you now. So it shows the value of what we were doing. You know, that if you looked in the 1968 LA Times or Chronicle, they might be $7 or $8, but the Black Panther Party is strong at $100 because people understand the value of what we were trying to do. We were trying to educate people through a vanguard type way of resistance. You know, we call them survival programs. We got that word from Che Guevara. Che Guevara talks about survival programs. So borrowing that phrase, we call our programs survival programs. No, we don't say they were a solution to the problem, but they could keep you alive. You could survive until there was an answer or a means or another way to do things. For instance, we used to call these like survival conferences. This particular poster here is 1972. This particular rally was called Anti-War, because the war was still going on in 1972, African Liberation, establishing our support and on an international basis, and voter registration, because black people couldn't vote, and we were trying to get black people to vote so they can take control of their immediate community. So at this particular rally, We gave away 10,000 free bags of groceries. It takes a lot of organization to give away 10,000 bags of groceries. 10,000 bags of groceries. Also, we had 10,000 sickle cell anemia testing. And for those who don't know what sickle cell anemia is, it's a disease that's dominated, well, most black people, well, 10% of black people have this disease. It's when your white cell, your sickle cells stretch, sickle, and turn into a sickle form. Very painful disease. It's deadly. But the United States government wasn't doing anything about this. They wasn't doing any research on it whatsoever till the Black Panther Party started pointing out those contradictions. So in 1973, at the State of the Union message, then Richard Nixon talks about we got to do more about sickle cell anemia. I wonder where he got that from, right? So what we did, we put social practice, we put our theories into social practice. So we gave away a lot of food, we educated people, and a lot of people joined the Black Panther Party. Now, what really attracted a lot of people was the fact that we were standing up against the system. So in 1970, we had a young man named George Jackson, political prisoner, join our organization. He's the author of 2 books. One is Soledad Brothers, and another one is Blood in My Eye. Now, he and Angela Davis were very close. So Angela Davis, and he would, she would go visit him. And so if you know anything about the 70s and Angela Davis, she was accused of participating in this raid that freed some prisoners and got some people were killed. So her guns was used without her knowledge. And so that's how Free Angela came about, because she was accused of a crime. She was accused of doing something she didn't do. So the Black Panther Party, like I said, was in 30 major cities. We had brothers like this right here, joining the organization from all over the country. We had sisters from all over the country joining the Black Panther Party. Like I said, within the ranks of the Black Panther Party, women were treated equal. This is a lesson that we had to learn through social practice. We had to re-educate people. We had to kick some people out the party because they refused to let their male chauvinism go. By the way, those are Sacramento women. This is Eldridge Cleaver. He was the Minister of Information of the Black Panther Party from 1967 through 1971. In 1971, Eldridge and Huey had a contradiction. And Eldridge, like mentioned before, he was for armed struggle in America, whereas Huey was for doing community organizing and working the social programs and educating people about the need for a revolution. So in 1971, there was a contradiction, and Eldridge Cleaver was kicked out the Black Panther Party. Bobby Seale, the chairman of the Black Panther Party, he is a organizing genius. Everything, people say, oh, you, BJ, you know a lot, but I learned it from Bobby Seale. He is a great organizer, and he was different from other people in the leadership of the Black Panther Party. If you ever know Bobby, he's like your uncle, You could say, joke around with him and talk to him and really relax around this brother. But he had a great knowledge of organizing. Black people start recognizing the fact that they were from Africa, that they wasn't Negroes. For many years, black people were brainwashed and to accepting the fact that this word named Negro, they were Negroes. And I said to them, where's Negro land at? Where's Negro land under the map? There is no such a thing. So this is the age that black people start realizing that, hey, I'm from Africa. I am black. I am somebody, So that culminated with the self-defense aspect of the Black Panther Party. This is an iconic picture of Panthers in front of the Alameda County Courthouse. Black Panther Party newspaper, I said, was read by members of the community all over across the country. Now, the thing about the Black Panther Party newspaper is that in it, you see these cartoons on the pin boards. At that time, there was a lot of people in the community the black community wasn't a reading community. They didn't read books and magazines. They didn't read about Marx, So there had to be another way to educate them, and it was through art. It was through the culture of art, because the person can look at this sister. They can look at the photos and get the feel of what's going on. So our art was a way to educate people in the Black Panther Party newspaper. Now, this is a rally to support Eldridge Cleaver on the campus of UC Berkeley. At that time, students wanted Eldridge Cleaver to speak, be a professor on campus, and Ronald Reagan, the governor at that time, refused to do so. So there was a big support rally, and these are the people that came out to support Eldridge to be a professor. Iconic picture of the Black Panther Party. Most people know the Black Panther Party through the leather coat, the beret, the dark glasses. But after 1969, you don't see that because we're under so much pressure by the government, we can't afford to be walking down the street with berets on because, like I said, 28 members of our organization had been killed by state and local agencies of the government. 400 Panthers in the year 1969 alone was arrested. So that was a way for the government to keep our organization spinning. So we're spending all this money continuously to keep people out of jail. So that was a tactic they used against us. So as soon as we got money, we have to spend it to get people out of jail. And a lot of those charges against those Panthers were trumped up or didn't even reach court as for a trial. Black Panther Party members in Marin County, self-defense aspect attracted a lot of people. You know, for myself personally, guns were never really attracted to me because I'm from Alabama. We grew up with guns. Everybody down south has guns, you know, for hunting, self-defense, and so forth. So guns to me was not like a thrill. It was the fact of doing community work in the community that really thrilled me. As well, women in the party was armed as well. There's some sisters in the party can really shoot. And you need that because the police are attacking us. You have to know, you know, when I was in the party, I joined when I was 17, I never thought I was going to make it to be 21. To make it to be 21, 4 years in the Black Panther Party, unheard of. Know your friends, know your enemies. This is something Mao says in the Red Book. And so in order to know your friends and know your enemies, we had to educate people. We had to show people parallel who our enemy were. In the black community, black people see white people as being their enemy. You know, everybody who's oppressing them are white. But we were trying to tell people that those people are oppressed as well. You know, this is not a race struggle. This is a class struggle. Black, brown, poor white people are in the same boat. And since we're in the same boat, we need to row together, you know. And so we were children of Malcolm. Malcolm later on in his life said, you don't judge a person by their skin color. You judge them by the content of their actions or their social practice. Isn't that a true thing? You judge people on their social practice. It's stupid for me to say, because you're white or because I'm black, you already know about me. That's unscientific, you know, very unscientific. I don't know you, you don't know me, you know my abilities. So it's stupid to profile people like that. So we were trying to educate people through example. So we had coalitions with different groups, different organizations. You know, Black Panther Party was not a racist organization. We had coalitions with SDS, Students for Democratic Society, the Mobilization Against the War, the Peace and Freedom Party. Any organization that was moving in a positive direction, we had positive relationship with them. Kathleen, beautiful Kathleen. Black Panther Party members. When people, like Bobby said, seen us in those uniforms, seen us standing up to the police, the Black Panther Party grew. He didn't like what he was seeing. So, as a Panther in training, I moved up in the Black Panther Party and eventually was moved to the central headquarters. That's how most Panthers know me. They know me because I worked at the central headquarters. In 1970, Huey P. Newton got out of prison. The Central Committee, the governing body of the Black Panther Party, said, your job for now is to be with Huey, right? So this is a picture of me and Huey going to court, right? They said to me, whatever happens to Huey, better happen to you first. So I got to know Huey on a personal basis. I worked with him. Bobby Seale ran for mayor of Oakland in 1972. That changed Oakland completely. All those people we've been registering to vote now have community power. So when Bobby Seale ran for mayor of Oakland, we almost won that. But it showed people in the community this could be done. In the very next election, Lionel Wilson became the first black mayor with the support of the Black Panther Party in the city of Oakland. That was followed by a black county supervisor. That was followed by black city council people, and Chicano Mexican city council people. So we were showing that community power could be had. We had the ability to determine the destiny of our community if we work together. So that's what really changed Oakland from an all-white city to a multicolored city because of the efforts the social programs and the coalitions we had with different groups. Okay. Now, the legacy of the Black Panther Party is our social programs. Now, today what I do is go around, have exhibits. Last year I had the fortune to go to Marxism over in England, over in London. That was fantastic. That was fantastic. I was able to meet people from all over the world at that conference. I met people during that time was from Egypt, from Arab countries, had face-to-face conversations. It was liberating to find that Marxism is still living, happening in the world. Because in America, you don't see that or hear about that. But I went to this conference. And the conference re-inspired me. So I actually had to break out a book and read it. And coming here, the energy I saw on Thursday night, how one comrade hadn't seen another comrade, and they might be working in another office somewhere in another part of the country, but this might be the only time they see each other. I saw love. I see people running up to each other, hugging each other, and saying, "Comrade, I ain't seen you in a long time," And I hadn't seen that or been a part of a motion like that since I was in the Black Panther Party. So it was liberating. I tell you, liberating to see the spirit that was exhibited here at this conference. I mean, you have to take your hats off to the organizers who organized this. I mean, I stayed with one of the organizers, Julia, and the other comrades, and they really put their hearts into making this something that people will be proud of. I'm very proud of them. And I can't wait to get back to America and say, you know what happened in Australia? I met some dynamite people, and they were Marxists. And they were they were real stud, And the thing about being a Marxist is once you have it, you got it. And you might not do anything with it, but you got it. Because you're able to see contradictions. You're able to see smoke screens. You're able to explain people what socialism is. You're able to explain how the struggle in Palestine, how the struggle in America and Australia is all culminated by the same imperialistic forces. So that is a positive thing, And when I was in the Black Panther Party, like I said, we were socialistic. We supported socialistic government, and we tried to act in a socialistic manner. Our programs was bearing that out. We were showing people what socialism was on a small scale, with our social programs. And people here, the Aboriginal Panther Party, saw what we were doing and started implementing programs here. They started implementing programs in India. Yes, there was a Black Panther Party in India. There was a Black Panther Party in Australia, India, Africa, New Zealand, and other places that I'm just finding out because the examples, we consider ourselves colonized people, and colonized people, that kind of concept people relate to because they had colonized people throughout the world. And so people started gravitating towards the Black Panther Party, using examples that the Black Panther Party has set. So my job today is to record our history because our history is mostly unwritten. You know, just now you're starting to see books about the Panthers or people like me popping up, right? So my job is we have a big website, is to collect the information, put it on our website so that people have a one-stop shop. You know, they can come to our website and find out, they can read a Panther paper, they can find out about the struggle about the Palestinians, they can find out about the struggle. When I get back, Gary Foley has inspired me so to put a lot of information on our website about the struggle here. I didn't know about the struggle here until I came here. I mean, there was sketchy information, but it's very clear that people have been struggling here since other people came and took their land. So I myself am going to take this struggle back to America. Whenever I speak, I'm going to talk about the conditions here in Australia. I'm going to talk about, I went to a conference where people was positive. They had an outlook and hope for the future. And Marxism is not dead. Marxism is not dead. Can I hear that? Marxism is not dead. That's right. So I tell you, I like to end it right there. So maybe we can start a Q&A. Maybe people can ask questions that they have on mind, or how do you want to do that?
Yeah. You want to...
Okay.